and welcome back to another Racing Stacks TBR, the first of 2022, and therefore the first one where I don't have to cram 1,000 books into my TBR. I mean, I probably still will, but I don't have to. My Goodreads goal for 2020 is 10 books, which I can easily do, even if I only read like one book a week. Is less than I've been reading obviously in the previous year. I think I can hit 10. I hit 230. I think I can hit 10. And it means that I can just sit back and actually enjoy a reading year, as opposed to panicking every time it comes to my TBR because I need to squeeze in books that I can either cram into audiobooks or really easy reads, or our graphic novels, short reads, or just abandoning my TBR the moment I've set it, because realistically I can't get that many books done a month. It will probably still be a nice and long TBR because that is who I am as a person. But once again, I'm going to show you how I'm playing the game, and so you'll get to see it as a split screen, and then I will show you the books that I pick depending on the prompts that I get. So if you've not watched Racing Stacks before, yeah. No, you're gonna be a psycho. Great. Okay. You could expect that to happen again. So if you've not watched Racing Stacks before, essentially I have a virtual game where I run through a bunch of stacks and I'm collecting prompts as I go. So all of the little widgets, all of the little images relate to a different genre, and essentially it will be something like the moon is gothic fiction, the mushroom is contemporary, the puzzle piece is middle grade, etc. And then I get randomly generated prompts based on the genre that I've picked. It's pretty much self-explanatory. Once you watch it, you'll understand. I'm allowed to have 3 goes, so if I don't like the first 2 versions of the prompts, I can then pick the 3rd, but the main problem with that is I can't go back to previous lists. So if I don't like the 3rd list, it doesn't matter. That is the list that I'm going with. It's been really fun, but I'm terrible at this game. So anyway, I will now split the screen. You can see what I'm seeing and we will start playing. I've also got to try and remember how I go up and down. I think it's Z. I've not played this in a while. I've not played this in a whole month actually, so my memory is not what it used to be. So we will see. How's that? How do I go? Okay, I can go up and down literally like that, and then, oh okay, it's W and S. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so we have 1, 2. Oh, sci-fi. I didn't really want sci-fi. I'm not a massive fan of sci-fi, but I like it as a little challenge to myself. Okay, so my first list is literary authors backlist. Definitely doable. Middle grade is cat pick. We love seeing a cat pick. Classic is a readathon prompt. I'm taking part in 2 readathons this month, and that is Explorathon and Buzzwordathon. So that's interesting. Literary haiku titles. Oh, okay, so haiku titles, if you saw last month, you'll know that I immediately like DNF'd that prompt list because of haiku titles. Essentially with haiku titles, I have to pick 3 books instead of just the 1, and they have to have 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables in the title, thus making a haiku. And there's a lot of classic in that. And I don't want to read a non-fiction about a triggering subject. I just don't want to do that. That's no. Right, I'm gonna go again. We're gonna go again. So this is my 2nd attempt. Hopefully we can get some nice stuff. That's contemporary. We've got romance. I think that's adventure, gothic. I think that might be classic actually. I might have just collected a whole bunch of... Oh no, mysteries. Okay, cool. So we've got contemporary, booktuber, TBR games. This is where I get to watch someone else's TBR game and pick a book. Debut author for contemporary, romance, a gifted book. Another literary haiku titles. How bizarre. Right, I think we want to avoid haiku titles. But then the other ones are really good prompts. Like, I love the idea of stealing from someone else's TBR. I love the idea of a mystery being chosen by a friend. See, this is a really good list, so it could be a real risk. But I think I'm going to do it again, and I think I'm going to try and avoid literary. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I need to try and work out which one was the literary. I think literary is either the sun or candles. So I'm going to go again. Final one, this is it. And then if I hit those... I really just don't want to do haiku titles. I don't want my first TBR of the month to be really long. So let's go again. Okay. Last chance. Okay, so... oh, that's thriller. Don't really want a middle grade. I can't remember what snakes are. I think that's non-fiction. Let's go historical fiction. That's a little bit different, isn't it? Don't want that one. Don't want them to be all thriller. That's probably the literary one that I've just clicked, even though I said I don't want to click those ones. Where's the romance and fantasy? There's romance. Okay. So, classic, booktuber recommends. Thriller, foreign country. Non-fiction, steal from someone's TBR. Thriller, a booktube favourite. Non-fiction matches my outfit. Okay, so it needs to have a blue cover essentially. Blue and cozy. Gothic fiction mum picks. That's not my favourite. That's not my favourite. Historical fiction red cover. Gothic fiction gifted book I know I've got. Romance booktuber recommends I know I've got. Well, I mean, I don't get a choice anyway. This is the list that I'm going with. These are the prompts. So what I will do is I will pause this here, I will go and select my books, and then I will tell you what I will be reading in January. Okay, so I have my full TBR. Let's go through the list. So the first prompt from my racing stacks was a classic that is a booktuber's favourite or booktuber recommends, and I'm going with Frankenstein. Now this will be a reread for me. However, when I did my TBR favourites book champions video, I obviously created a massive spreadsheet that kind of put top books into a tier ranking, and this classic came up the most. So whilst it isn't my favourite, it is very, very popular amongst booktube, so I'm counting it, and I will probably do this as an audiobook because as much as I really, really love this copy, she is kind of chunky. It's not a massive story, but it is very dry. It's just not my favourite. I think what Mary Shelley has done with the genre is incredible. Just Frankenstein is a bit of, it's a lot. Right, so it's on the list. Hopefully I can fall more in love with it upon a second reading, we shall see, but that's the first one. The next one is a thriller with a foreign setting, so I'm picking up Certain Dark Things. This is kind of in response to the first book, in that I don't love this, but I love Silva Moreno Garcia's writing. You will have, if you've seen my content before, you will know that I already started reading this. I'm 3 chapters in, and I read it as part of my NetGalley clear out thing. I then also put it in my Gothtober TBR. Now it's a fresh year, fresh start. I only have to unhaul a book if it gets TBR'd 3 times and I don't read it. But like I said, I started this one. I really, really enjoyed it. I just didn't get around to it in Gothtober, so I'm picking it up again now, and I'm very, very excited. But this is obviously the first time it's been TBR'd. I'm hoping it doesn't come up more than that, because that would be a real shame, but I love this writer, so I'm really excited for this one. Next is a non-fiction book that I have stolen from someone else's TBR. Now I'm quite lucky, especially with this being non-fiction, that obviously there were a lot of TBRs that went up in November which were non-fiction November TBRs, because there was a lot of different choices, but I decided to go with The Book Castle and watch their TBR video again, just because it was one of the more recent ones that I watched for the BookTube Champions video. Now, the one that I thought sounded most interesting from the Book Castle's TBR list was We Are the Weather, which is all about climate change and how we can affect that and how we can change that, and it is a subject that I'm interested in, so I thought that would be a really great non-fiction to read. And a lot of the non-fiction that I've read in 2021 have all been history or like memoir based, so it'll be nice to read a non-fiction that isn't about those subjects, that's about something new, that's something I'm kind of interested in but I've only ever scratched the surface of. So that is going to be that one. Next is Gothic fiction my mum picks. Now, I did not trust my mum to pick a Gothic fiction book for me just out of the blue, mainly because Kieran, my brother, has ruined that for me, because I had my brother picks last time and he chose this. He chose the histories, of which I'm finally picking up and I am enjoying, but it is hefty. It is hefty, so I wasn't going to risk that again. So I gave my mum some options. She could either pick The Year of the Witching, which is an alternate history, I think, gothic fiction, very religious based, gifted to me by Ashley, so really need to get to this but haven't got to it yet. Velvet Was the Night, which is another Sylvia Moreno Garcia book that again I put on my Gothtober TBR and just didn't get to. And Mrs. Rochester's Ghost, which is a book that I've heard very few people talk about, but I've recommended it in my subscription box that I send out because it just sounds so good. So it's all about Jane Eyre essentially, but it's written from Mrs. Rochester's perspective, and I think it's more of like a modern retelling, but I can't really remember. It says modern and twisty retelling, so I'm assuming so. And this is the one that my mum picked for me. Those that I've recommended to have really enjoyed it, so really it's time for me to put my money where my mouth is and see if I can recommend something that I also really enjoy, because obviously I recommended it based on what they like and what it sounded like and the interest that I have in it. So it will be really interesting to kind of finally get to this, because it's been on my TBR since I recommended it, because I wanted to read it as well and I just didn't get the time. So gothic fiction my mum picks, the TLDR is Mrs. Rochester's Ghost. So there's that one. Next is a historical fiction with a red cover. I don't have any that are like on the outside red covers, so I'm going with Hamnet because obviously the actual hardback of it is red. This is another one that I TBR'd in 2021, but going into 2022 gets a fresh slate because it only got TBR'd once or twice. And this is a retelling of Shakespeare's life. It's a historical fiction about Shakespeare, although I don't think it ever actually names him as Shakespeare. He's just kind of a playwright, and I think it's from the perspective of his wife, and it's certainly after their son dies or their son is dying, something like that. But I'm a massive fan of Shakespeare. I always get involved in All the World's a Page, like I love that readathon, so it's time for me to finally get to this one. I'm excited. Next was a gothic fiction gifted book. I'm going to be reading The Hollow Places, and it's really funny to me because I took a picture of this morning and shared it on Instagram because I was hoping to squeeze as many gifted books into this TBR as possible, and whilst that hasn't been completely possible, this is the photo that I took of to kind of be like, I got gifted books for Christmas, I want to get them into my January TBR. This is another book gifted to me by Ashley from Frolic Through Fiction. I don't know much about it, I just know that people who enjoy gothic fiction have really enjoyed it, and it's just got such a spooky front cover that I'm excited. I'm really excited for this one. So Ashley's got great taste when it comes to gothic fiction, so I have no doubt that I will love this one. Next is a thriller, which is a booktube favourite. So I'm going to read My Heart Is a Chainsaw, and essentially this was the Literally Dead book club pick for either November or October. So I saw it a lot coming up in TBRs and it just looks so interesting, and I know that Stephen Graham Jones has really gleaned a lot of respect as a thriller writer since The Only Good Indians. This is the most recent release, I think. But I'm really excited. I don't know enough about it to really explain it. It's more just that I bought it because people that I like their taste in books liked it, and I'm kind of going in blind, which is something I'm going to try and do more in 2022 because I have such a bad habit of like researching every little bit about a book and then getting really excited and then being disappointed, or it's not what the synopsis has described it as. So I'm going into this one almost completely blind, other than it's really popular. So that is the booktube favourite, My Heart Is a Chainsaw. I love the front cover as well. I love something that's like so simple but so sinister. That just looks great, so love that for me. Next is non-fiction that matches my outfit. So obviously I said that I was going for something that was dark blue. I will be reading the 3 Happy Habits. I have not yet read Atomic Habits, but my dad has, and my brother has, and my mum has. So I feel like I have, just by the sheer amount they talk to me about it. So I'm hoping the 3 Happy Habits is something that I can read that is kind of continuing on my understanding of that book, even though they're by completely different authors, but it's just the idea of habit stacking, creating positive habits, and where I'm promoting my new subscription box, which is a business-based box, I need to be reading more business books so that I can recommend them to people, and this just seems like a really great way to do that. So I will be doing this as an audio book on Scribd first, and then if I can get myself a paperback copy, if I like it, I will do that. If it's not worth the time, then I've not lost anything. So that is going to be my second non-fiction pick. Next is romance and booktuber recommends. So obviously I will be reading The Love Hypothesis. This was gifted to me by Lizzie from Lizzie as Elf, and this is Kelly's from the Velvet Library's favourite romance, possibly of all time, certainly of 2021. I know for a fact they've already read it twice since they got a copy. They've also read many a fan fiction related to Raylo. I am also a massive Raylo stan, so I'm really excited for this one, and I have no doubt this will be my first read of the year. I will get to the spooky and the gothic later, that will happen, but I need to know. I need to know. Kelly obviously did spoil it for me, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but apparently at the end of this romance, they like... So I'm just really excited. I'm really excited to get to this one. It looks super cute, and I love that it's a complete opposite vibe to every other book on my TBR thus far and going forward. And then the final one was Gothic Fiction Random Page Generator. Now, last time I got Random Page Generator, I ended up with the Goldfinch on my TBR, and I said that what I should have done is just pretended that I recorded it and chosen one. And I feel really bad that I forgot to record the number generator, and now I've turned my laptop off. I could go back and record it, and I could do it all over again, but I really can't be bothered. So I got 270, and I hope you believe me. Now, with 270, the closest Gothic fiction I had to 270 was Certain Dark Things, but obviously that is already on my TBR. So what I have done is I have picked the next longest Gothic fiction by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. So I do still have 2 of her books on my TBR, and I'll be reading The Beautiful Ones. This is about socialites. I think it has Gothic romance in it. Again, love the style of writing, so really, really excited to see what is done with this one. So those are my racing stack books. I do have some more books that I need to put on my TBR, because as I mentioned, I am doing Buzzwordathon and I am doing Explorathon, and then obviously I have my book club picks as well. So for Buzzwordathon, obviously it was the 5 W's, so who, what, where, when, why. I will be reading Where the Drowned Girls Go. I have pre-ordered it, so I'm hoping it will arrive in time for me to read it in January, but that is going to be my Buzzwordathon read. For Lamentable Library, the book we're going to be reading for January is Horrid, and then the live stream will be in February. I don't remember anything about Horrid. I put this on my wish list last year, and this was gifted to me by Keris for either my birthday or Christmas last year. My birthday, and she's called me a wonderful human being. Isn't that nice? That's really, I'm really excited to finally get to that one, and this was one of my picks for Lamentable Library, so I'm really excited for that. But like I said, I don't remember anything about it, but I've just heard that it's very grimdark, and I'm excited for that one. Obviously, we're still doing the Dead Famous read along. We are now officially on book 12. We will be reading Bedlam. It finally gets chunky again, because the last 2 lured me to a full sense of security of being smaller, and now it's back to being chunky again. That's terrifying, but it is the 3rd of the new series, because it kind of splits into 2 series, season 1 and season 2. So this is the 3rd book in the 2nd season, and then I've only got 3 more books to go after this, so that's sad. Anyway, really excited for this one. I won't go into it too much. Again, if you haven't read the series, you absolutely should, but essentially it's about a skeleton detective solving crimes, lots of magic vibes. If you like a certain series about a certain magic school, I would definitely give this a recommendation as well, because it just has that wonder and the banter and all the things that I loved of that series, but without a shitty author, so that's nice. And then obviously, like I said, I'm doing Explorathon. So Explorathon is essentially working where you get medals depending on what rating you give the book that you pick. So you want to aim for books you're going to give 5 stars, because then you get more medals at the end. And obviously the more challenges you take on, the more prompts you tick off, again the more medals you get for your team. So you don't have to read a lot to like take part. You could read 1 book and take part and still get gold medals, but it depends on what you read, how you pick, etc. So because there are like 20 to 30 prompts, there are a lot of prompts. I've decided, I don't know how many prompts there are, to be honest. I think there's like 15. Because there are quite a few prompts, I've decided I'm only going to start with 5, and if I read all 5 and I read my TBR, then I will come back to Explorathon and add more books to it. But I'm starting with these 5 because they're books that I'm excited to read anyway, but also I'm not putting too much on my plate, because I don't need to read that much. Like I said right at the start, I've only got to set myself a challenge of 10 books this year, so it's not going to be difficult to hit that. And I don't want to put them onto a TBR and then risk not being able to put them on a TBR in a couple of months' time, and then or unhauling them because I've TBR'd them too many times. essentially. So the first prompt is archery, and archery is a 5-star prediction. So for that I have chosen Beyond the Black Door. I loved In the Ravenous Dark, so I'm really excited to read another A.M. Strickland. This has been TBR'd multiple times in 2021, but I haven't unhauled it yet, so I need to get to it, otherwise I'm just neglecting what I know will be a 5-star read for me. So that's the first one. The next one is Dueling, or to fight, I assume like fencing essentially, which is a multiple POV. So again, I will be re-picking up The Ravens. I got about 5 chapters in and then put this down and just never picked it up again. It's been sat in my Goodreads currently reading for forever, so I just need to finish it, and I know that it has at least 2 POV because that's what I've seen in the first 5 chapters. So there is that one. Next is Weapon Forging. I didn't realise, I feel like I expected this to be like Olympics, but it's like Fantasy Olympics, so sure, Weapon Forging. And the prompt for Weapon Forging is a weapon on the cover, so I will be reading the Graceling. Again, I don't know a lot about this. I know there was going to be a read along about it, and then kind of dropped off and just didn't actually read them, even though I bought the first one to see if I actually like it. So we'll finally be picking this one up again. Next will be Swimming, so a book that involves water, and now Blackwater Sister literally has it in the title, and I believe it's set around like a lake or a river. I know it's got ghosts in and stuff, so it's another great gothic fiction one, and I actually gifted this to Abby for Christmas. So Abby, if you would like to buddy read this, please let me know. And then the final one is Obstacle Course, so a book set in a foreign setting, and I'm going with the Khan. Whilst the beginning is set in London, it does mention that she goes to Pakistan, so I'm imagining it's going to be heavily set in Pakistan, so I'm counting it. But this is essentially about a woman who is a Pakistani lawyer in London, whose father is the head of a Pakistani mob family. He is then murdered, and she has to return to Pakistan to kind of find out who killed him, but also to run the business. So it feels like it's going to be very much The Godfather, but with more cultural relevance, etc., to like Eastern Asia, etc. So I'm really, really excited for that. I've got really, really high hopes. This was one of the books that I picked for Bevies and Books, but just never got around to, so I need to read it for that reason as well. But yeah, I'm really, really excited for this because it just sounds like it's going to be a really interesting mix of a lot of different things, so we love that. So there it is, there is my TBR. It's 17 books long and still one of the shortest TBRs I've had in at least a year, so that's nice. Let me know in the comments down below which book you are most excited to read in January. Let me know if you've read any of the books here and what you thought of them, and don't forget to click those links over onto Waypoint. Treat yourself to a book today, and I will see you